It's no secret that Star Wars minifigures are pretty expensive, but in today's video I will show you some of the crazy expensive Star Wars minifigures that I have in my collection. And to make it interesting, for each minifigure I will design a display scene so that we can highlight these amazing and rare minifigures. All of them are going to be from various kinds of Star Wars media, movies, TV shows, animated shows, and even video games. We'll start the list with one of my all-time favorite Star Wars minifigure, Queen Amidala from 2012 Gungan sub. She has this unique dress piece with really fine golden printing that connects perfectly with the torso, but also her crown is a masterpiece. Just look at all these details, and it's also made from rubbery material so that these smaller pieces don't break off. Overall, every part of this minifigure is unique and has never been re-released, making this minifigure very rare and desirable. And that's why it's currently priced at around $187. This minifigure is of course based on the episode 1 appearance of Queen Amidala and has gotten an iconic status since then. Just try googling Queen Amidala episode 1. Now it's time to build a scene for her. I will start with a 10x10 studs black base, which we will use for all scenes going forward. Now obviously for her we must create some kind of Naboo base scene. I will start with a mostly 10 base with a couple steps, and since we saw quite a few battles there, I decided to create some building ruins as a background. As a final touch, we can also add some greenery, and lastly the Queen herself. I think this display turned out really clean, and I like that it doesn't take a lot of space, while also highlighting this 10 out of 10 minifigure. Next minifigure on today's list is going to be Director Krennic from the Rogue One, one of my favorite Star Wars movies. This minifigure has only appeared in one set, Krennic's shuttle, and is pretty basic, no special molded pieces, and the only two unique prints are the head and the torso. Maybe that's why the price of this minifigure is not as crazy at the moment, it's around $57, making it the least expensive minifigure of today's video. And actually, if you watch the video until the figure number 7, it is going to be the most expensive minifigure in this video, costing almost 4 times more than this one. Alright, going back to this figure, I actually want to bring 2 additional pieces before we make a display for it. These legs with printed hips and a black Imperial cap. Now, if you saw Rogue One movie, you might remember that one of the key scenes was when Krennic has discovered Galen Erso with his family, so I decided to build exactly that. We'll start again with the base, and first I want to map out where the minifigures are going to stand. That's right, Krennic didn't come alone. Next, I will need a lot of these pieces with open studs, as well as these, so that we can create a field where Krennic meets Galen. Now the field is done, and you can see we left an empty spot here, and that's where we will add the evaporator. And finally, let's add the figures. This display turned out simple but really awesome, and as you can see, the legs and the cap make the scene even more screen accurate. Moving on to the next minifigure, which is going to be the original Phase 2 Captain Rex, released back in 2013 in only one set. The price of this minifigure at some point reached almost $200, but then took a huge hit when Lego released new Captain Rex in a $13 microfighter set. I hope that was a lesson for everybody that Lego is firstly a toy and not an asset. Economics aside, this is an amazing minifigure with unique pieces and incredibly detailed printing. The only part I don't like about this figure is the head, because of the Clone Wars style face. For this minifigure I wanted to recreate a scene from the Clone Wars where the 501st have captured fallen Jedi Pong Krell, who by the way is not cheap either. This figure is going for around $59. Okay, let's move to the build. My idea is that I want to create a jail like we saw in the show, and put Pong Krell there, while Rex and Fives are going to be outside. Looks pretty good I think, but it would be even better if I had the reverse arch pieces so that I can make a circular shape. Also, how cool is that to finally have official Fives minifigure? He fits perfectly in that scene. Before we move to the next minifigure, I just wanted to remind that if you are enjoying this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you. Now to the figure, and it's going to be second most expensive minifigure of today's video at $197, Lando Calrissian from the 2018 Cloud set. For that much money, this minifigure is honestly pretty underwhelming. The only two unique parts of this minifigure is the torso and a cape, which I got to admit looks pretty cool, but still almost $200 for that. Personally, I have this minifigure just because recently I bought a used Cloud City set, but otherwise I wouldn't buy it for that much money. Anyway, for the display of this figure, I decided to create a minimalistic Cloud City style stand, and actually both of these background builds I'm borrowing from the Cloud City set. As you can see, I've also added Lando's loyal servant Lobot, looks pretty good. This next minifigure is going to be all the way from 2002, Bounty Hunter Zam Wessel, priced at around $97, and I think even by today's standards this minifigure is just awesome. The dual-sided head, great prints, and overall the color of this figure, sand purple, just looks superb. For it, I wanted to recreate a scene from episode 2 where Anakin and Obi-Wan finally catch her, drag outside the bar and start the questioning. For this scene I will create a simple door frame, but also this really nice Republic crate. Now let's put everything together and add the minifigures. And this is the end result. Moving on to the next minifigure, and we are jumping back to Clone Wars characters, namely Commander Wolffe, that came out in one set in 2011 and currently goes for about $155. This minifigure is great, especially I like the helmet printing, which is very unique, but accurate at the same time, and also his plastic waist cape is pretty cool. The head print is also great, but I have the same issue with it as with Rex's, Clone Wars eyes. For Commander Wolffe, I decided to create a command center with some usual Star Wars tech. By the way, here I had to use 2 of the same glass pieces so that the clip can hold them. And as well, I'm creating a hologram table, and that's how the hologram is connected. To accompany Commander Wolffe, let's add Jedi Master Plo Koon, and this is our final scene. Although it's pretty simplistic, I think this might be my favorite one so far. Minifigure number 7, as promised, is going to be the most expensive in today's video at $209, and is previously from the Clone Wars as well. This figure, like many others today, also came in one set, and if you don't know, Previously is the leader of the Death Watch and had ruled Mandalore before the Maul took over and killed him. This minifigure is really cool, and I think mostly because of this super unique shoulder cape. Not only it's incredibly accurate, but also this is the only time LEGO has ever done a cape of that shape. As for the build for this minifigure, I have to admit I cheated a little, but that's because a perfect build to display this minifigure already exists, and it's a Throne from Duel on Mandalore set. Honestly, I'm amazed how awesome this build is and how LEGO was able to pack 2 great play functions in such a small set. Now, to complete this display, let's add the figures of Previously with Darksaber, and of course Darth Maul. Not gonna lie, this one looks pretty epic. Moving on to the next minifigure, which is an original trilogy character, Princess Leia. And no, not this one. Princess Leia in Bausch disguise. This version of Leia is going for $115, and it came in, you guessed it, one set back in 2012, and has never returned since. The torso and legs print are on point, but definitely a highlight of this figure is a special molded helmet. As for the scene for this minifigure, I decided to recreate the moment when Leia frees Han from the carbonite at Jabba's palace, moments before they both get captured. First I will lay some floors and then add a wall. And then I will use a good old carbonite piece, but since Han is no longer inside, I will turn it around so that it's empty. Lastly, I'll add a control panel, and now we can finally add the minifigures to complete this romantic scene. While there are a lot of really expensive Star Wars figures out there like the ones I showed today, it is still possible to create a decent collection for just about $200, basically a price of almost any minifig from this video. To see how to do that, you can watch my previous video, and I will see you in the next one.